You tweeted recently, and I love this as a tweet. It was fantastic. America will remain in the lead if it stops getting its own way. You can feel nations pulling away from the US dollar. I was actually just messaging with Hugo Bauer, our mutual friend, before this, and he thought this was a good question. How could America stop getting its own way, and what would that look like, David?
Well, I think, it's important to get back to why people like me and before me and after me came to this country to build innovative companies. The first one is the rule of law and a level playing field. That's kind of the basics. But the most important one is actually the fact that if you're innovating and you're solving a real problem, then, basically you have an option of doing that, and no one's going to stand in your way. So this meritocracy of you're coming to this country, you're innovating, you're building something great, and you're creating jobs in the process, and you're in the lead. I think that, that requires a certain set of conditions to be met. And I feel like right now you need to come up with clear regulations when it touches, like, especially the industry that I'm in, clear regulations that protect consumers, but also that enables innovators to go build the things that are going to continue keeping the country ahead. And then I think there are all kinds of other foreign policy considerations here that are at play. But when you look at the tea leaves right now, it's really not looking great. It feels a little bit like we're on the path of an end of an empire of sorts, and that's probably reversible if there's concerted effort to actually really focus on what America's done really, really the best at, in the world at, and is actually getting innovators to come here and innovate and build things.
What are the most significant signs of the tea leaves not looking great?
Well, I mean, you look at a number of companies that are now not being built in the U.S. I mean, one good example is actually the first customer that we announced at Lightspark, which is a bank, a European bank now, which is called Xapo. That company was actually in the U.S. and they left the U.S. because they didn't feel like they had the regulatory clarity that they needed to continue investing here. That's just one example. But there are many more in this space that have left or decide to avoid the market because there's just no clarity of rules of engagements, so to speak. I think, on the geopolitical side, you can see all kinds of countries that used to be allies of the U.S. trying to pull away from the dollar and the magnetic force field, so to speak, of the dollar. And I think that's the result of overuse of sanctions and misalignment internationally between the U.S. and its former allies. And I think that's also a typical telltale of what's to come when you're actually you have the reserve currency of the world and people are trying to pull away from it.
David, I think we're all going nuts. I think we're all focused on the minutiae, and it's like, hang on a minute. The Saudi-Iran deal that was struck in the last few weeks means that the US dollar's kind of been unpegged as the reserve currency for oil that it's had for so many years, destabilizing the power and prominence of the US dollar, and no one really is talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I think you bring up a good point, which is it's not only losing the competitive edge that the U.S. has with bringing the best innovators and the best minds to the country and keeping them here. It's also really pulling away from the dollar, but it's also China and a bunch of other countries trying to reset the order, the world order, the way it actually has been in our lifetimes, for sure.
How do you see them trying to reset the world order?
I think that the reality is the U.S. was the main broker of the world order and the giant at the table. And you know, they've left a certain vacuum. I think, you know, we've left as a country a certain vacuum that is now trying to be filled by other nation states that are vying for this position of being in the lead.